You know, it's one thing for a filmmaker to try and bury a film he made that's bad. That's understandable. But it's certainly a flex to be embarrassed of a film you made that's good. To go so far as to publicly disown it and refuse to collaborate in any kind of restoration or modern home video release post VHS and Laserdisc. Michael Mann called his 1983 film The Keep a failed experiment, and for a major release from a big-name director, it has been notoriously difficult to see. The first version I saw was basically a torrent of a Laserdisc rip. Then it appeared for a brief window on streaming in standard def. But still, it gave everyone a little bit of hope. Now, I am the proud owner of the new Vinegar Syndrome 4K release, and good on them for brokering a deal with Paramount and getting this movie out there in all of its glory. After all, it is primarily a visual movie, incredibly stylish. How can a film be bad, failed, or embarrassing when it features such excellent visuals, elaborate costuming, great performances from Gabriel Byrne, Jürgen Prochnow, and Ian McKellen, a thumping score from Tangerine Dream, and most of all, spectacular sets from industry legend John Box? I think I might know what Michael Mann is getting at, however. He's not an internet film nerd for whom an ambitious monster costume or gore effects make a movie worth watching. Perhaps he's embarrassed by the subject matter. Fantasy horror is not a genre he ever returned to. Or perhaps the vision in his head was so much more grand, so much more thematically coherent, more emotionally powerful, whatever, that to watch what he perceives as a botched attempt at something that could have been great is just too painful. But I don't have the luxury of peering into Michael Mann's brain or knowing what the movie could have been. I have not seen the rumored 3.5-hour version. Nobody has, and none of the deleted scenes have ever surfaced. All I have is the 96-minute film, The Keep, and I can only judge that. And in my humble opinion, this story of Nazi soldiers disturbing the ancient sepulchre of the immortal Molasar is absolutely worth watching. The Keep is the story, I think, primarily of Captain Klaus Vormann, played by Jürgen Prochnow. Prochnow would go on to act in another film totally disowned by its director the very next year, David Lynch's Dune. So I guess he couldn't really catch a break. Neither could his character. A Nazi, yes, but one who appears to have fortitude and a good heart. I'm sure he didn't have much of a choice in the matter of enlistment, and he cares for the well-being of his men first. It appears they have landed in a plum position, not on the front lines, but instead tasked with fortifying an ancient castle in a small Romanian village and setting up a base of operations. Vormann is led by a mysterious caretaker on a tour of this strange, impressive keep, which appears to have been built to keep something in, rather than protect the people inside.
This place was not designed to keep something out. What's in this place?
Who knows for sure?
The walls are adorned with crosses of silver? But for what purpose? The greedy soldiers, fortune hunters, looking for a little loot to take back home, attempt to pry the embedded crosses from the wall, are dissuaded from doing so by the pleas of the caretaker.
Never touch the crosses.
But the pull of mystery and possible wealth eventually lead two soldiers on guard duty to try their luck. In this impressive scene, shot sporadically in slow motion to great effect, the metallic cross blazing with light, the music blasting, recalling Mann's subsequent effort Manhunter and his television show Miami Vice, in its willingness to embrace an extended vibes-based visual show of these men unearthing the mysteries of the keep, the same way William Peterson races in slow motion towards the kitchen window of the killer Dollarhide while Iron Butterfly blasts on the soundtrack, or Crockett and Tubbs coasting through the city wordlessly with Phil Collins booming. You know how crazy that was for TV in the early 80s? To just have a music montage sequence with no dialogue? Nuts, no one had ever done it before. Well anyway, back to the keep, and you guessed it. This doesn't end well for the German soldiers. It's just an impressive sequence, atmospheric, a real light show, but they get swallowed up by whatever evil lurks within the massive castle. The opening scene also, showing the entrance of the Nazi caravan, is incredibly impressive. Tangerine Dream hammering away as these impossibly bulky and lumbering trucks pile over the hill and into this almost fantasy village. This scene even parallels the opening of Mann's previous effort, an impressively lengthy pan from above down to the subject of the scene, which I imagine was very difficult to time and to keep the objects of importance in proper focus. Here, the trucks. It's moments like this that I think make The Keep an important effort in Mann's filmography. It's not completely divorced from his more lauded or on-brand movies. Despite the subject matter, it's just another important step in his progression as an artist. Michael Mann made waves with his stylish, hardcore, and tragic crime drama Thief, an excellent movie with a great lead performance by James Caan as the proto-Michael Mann protagonist, a rigorous safecracker of extraordinary competence for whom his work comes first and the duties of life are strategically planned out, not to optimize happiness per se, but to create a pantomime of life in which to operate, almost out of duty. This character idea, the featuring of the totally committed character, the consummate expert, is Mann's signature type, and would make an appearance in Manhunter, Heat, Collateral, Miami Vice, Black Hat, and arguably, to a lesser extent, in all of his other films, Ali, Ferrari, etc. If there's one character that embodies this in The Keep, it's probably Scott Glenn's mysterious character of Glaken, who is awakened hundreds of miles away when he senses The Keep has been breached. Instantly, he sets off on a long journey to Romania, accompanied by a beautiful sunrise, of course. These shots are just stellar. Glaken in the film is this inscrutable, mystical character. In F. Paul Wilson's original novel, his purpose, origin, and relation to the Keep is much more fleshed out. In that book, he's sort of this undying icon, an embodiment of goodness, locked in a perpetual, eons-long war against the forces of evil. Here, Glaken is the maniacally focused and intense man character. He has his special tool, he has methods and codes. He can easily dispatch anyone trying to stand in his way. And while he does end up distracted by love, as many of Mann's characters are, it's the mission that comes first, always. And his mission is to keep whatever is within the ancient walls dormant. And whatever it is continues to kill the Nazi soldiers. It is assumed by the High Command that there must be partisan activity in the area, saboteurs who are sneaking in under the cover of darkness and wreaking havoc. So the ante is upped, and Major Kempfer of the SS is sent to restore order, which he attempts to do with an iron fist. Kempfer and Vorman clash, the former's demeaning attitude, arrogance, and brutality playing in stark contrast to the latter's commitment to civility and code.
Sir, there are no partisans in this village. These men know nothing. If one more German soldier dies, all 5 hostages will be shot.
Kempfer stands for the politically ascendant Nazi Party and their grand designs on the world, as well as their effort to remake society in their own image. And he's a true believer. Vorman is the simple German soldier, not a zealot. He's simply in a tough position. He has no choice but to defend his men and home. And in the meantime, the only clue to the murders, a cryptic phrase scrawled on the wall of the keep, written in a dead language. The only man who might be able to decode it is a Jewish professor and his caretaker daughter. The nearly fatally infirm Dr. Theodor Kuza and his loyal daughter, Eva, are swiftly delivered to the keep, facing the penalty of doom in a concentration camp if they fail to cooperate, fail to unravel the deadly mystery. After suffering various slights,
Get your hands off.
Sit down.
the beautiful Eva is very nearly raped by 2 German soldiers. They instead meet with a gruesome death at the hands of the mysterious killer who snakes down the dank hallway of the keep in a pillar of smoke and spirits the unconscious Eva to her father in an impressive display of power, smoke billowing from his massive body, a redness of his inner core perhaps gleaming.
What are you?
Why are you here?
I thought I could find what was killing their soldiers.
Molasar, the ancient demon, in a sort of sinewy, anatomical version of himself, begins to cavort with Kuza, restoring his strength and promising deliverance for the Jews and an end to the Nazi scourge.
My people are murdered.
Yes, and others from all over Europe.
Who does this?
Their leader in Berlin. And the soldiers in black.
I will destroy them!
Molasar seems sincere as an overbuilt, sinewy, hulking avatar of retributive justice can be. He enlists Kuza to help him break free of the keep. Molisar was played by Michael Carter, no stranger to practical effects. He was the subway victim in Landis's American Werewolf in London, and he was also used to arduous prosthetics and makeup. He played Bib Fortuna in Return of the Jedi. Molisar, as designed, is cool. Visually striking, impressive, but to me he bears a certain similarity to, say, the robot from Saturn III, very top-heavy, sort of lumbering, but interesting nonetheless. In Wilson's novel, Molisar is very explicitly a vampire of sorts. He hails from Wallachia. Where he differs from legend, it is inferred that he must be the original vampire, the source from which all modern mythology springs. Here he is much more like a golem of Jewish lore than a Transylvanian bloodsucker. Mann said of his monster, Molisar is the essence of just sheer power, and the appeal of power, and the worship of power, a belief in power, a seduction of power. Mann made Molisar into a parallel for the entire Nazi project. We could then interpret the release of Molisar by the hapless German soldiers as an analogy for the release of the power or political force of Nazism on Germany and Europe, and the subsequent destruction brought on by Molisar being the destruction that Nazis unleashed upon the world, their hubris and attempt to control the power, and failure to do so, ending in their painful demise. In the finale, when Gabriel Byrne attempts to confront the beast, he instantly fails, crumbles under the strength of the evil he himself had a hand in unleashing. The character of Kempfer is one who paradoxically stands for control, for order, as the Nazis claim to impose, but in doing so, by stubbornly choosing to remain in the keep, ends up unleashing chaos. It reminded me very much of the testimony of Maurice Conquisse, one of my favorite novels, John Fowles' The Magus, in which Conquisse describes the effects of the Nazi project from his own experience. One of the great fallacies of our time is that the Nazis rose to power because they imposed order on chaos. Precisely the opposite is true. They were successful because they imposed chaos on order. They tore up the commandments. They denied the superego. You may persecute the minority. You may kill. You may torture. You may couple and breed without love. They offered humanity all its great temptations. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted. In the way Kempfer seeks to defy the old gods by not respecting the keep and seeking to use technology to bring it to heel, he is tearing up the commandments. The frenzied townsfolk, driven to madness by the expanding evil presence and power of Molisar, is encouraging their lesser traits, their petty resentments, fanatical anger, and causing it to emerge. The Magus is a great novel. Yes, there's actually a film adaptation with Anthony Quinn and a young Michael Caine. I've often thought about doing a video on it. Let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that. Well, conversely, Dr. Kuza also attempts to wrangle this power for himself. And as I said, Molisar looks to me like a golem figure. The myth of the golem has its origins in Jewish lore dating back to the 16th century, as a hulking figure sculpted of clay to protect Jews in their ghetto in Prague. As the story goes, a rabbi used Kabbalistic magic to bring it to life. Eventually, this creation became aware of itself and grew violent, uncontrollable, and had to be destroyed. The story of the golem can, I think, be read as a morality tale for the Jewish people, that in their quest to be freed of persecution, their methods might in turn spell, if not their own doom, then unleash an uncontrollable tormentor, not unlike those who wrong them, loose upon the world. In the end, Kuza finds within himself the fortitude to deny Molisar the magic totem that he needs to be free. And after he and Eva escape the charred and defaced edifice of the keep, the mysterious Glaken alone remains, presumably to do battle with Molisar, sacrificing himself. The climax is crowded with lots of laser beams and rather clunky optical effects, while the practical gore effects of the Nazis who are blasted onto and scored by flame and obliterated are incredible. It's somewhat uneven. And the worst is the talisman prop that Molisar needs to escape. It's like this little flashlight. You really feel for Ian McKellen, who is acting his ass off in the final confrontation with Molisar, but he has to hold this little whirly-gig doohickey while doing it. We feel a bit cheated by the lack of a real coherent thematic resolution. However, most of the visuals are amazing. The movie is stunning. Look at this beautiful image of Scott Glenn walking like a samurai through the fog-drenched set. The silver crosses blasting light. The twisted carcasses of all the Nazis' machinery smoldering around him. It's terrific. So yeah, the movie doesn't totally work, but there's a lot to enjoy. Mann created a beautiful little fantasy world here. A tiny medieval village haunted by and in the shadow of this tremendous labyrinthine prison built for a 1,000-year-old demon. What's not to like? Perhaps the keep was an attempt by Mann to model the career track of his fellow Chicago native, William Friedkin, who went from street crime films like French Connection into a literary horror adaptation, The Exorcist. It all worked out very well for Friedkin. Not so much for Mann, who decided to basically stay in a comfortable wheelhouse, to great effect in the 80s. I think in adapting Wilson's book, Mann rightly jettisons some of Wilson's extensive mythology that works in the book, but would have sucked some of the mystery from the ominous, arcane imagery we're so inundated with here, and the atmospheric, evocative music of Tangerine Dream. Mann just didn't have an entirely cohesive idea of what he would replace Wilson's major story beats with, that would have kept the film from feeling disjointed and maybe imperceptible. However, I really enjoy it, and I think you will too. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy my work, and I'll see you guys next time.